Most people spend their lives trading time for money. And by the time they realize what they've done, time is gone and money has slipped through their fingers. But here's the truth. Wealth isn't about working harder. It's about working wiser. It's not about hours on the clock. It's about seeds in the ground. You see, time is either your greatest liability or your greatest asset, depending on what you do with it. The poor spend it, the rich invest it. The poor chase comfort, the rich chase legacy. And the difference isn't luck, it's philosophy. If you learn to master your time, to build assets that pay you while you sleep, and to think in terms of legacy rather than lifestyle, you can rewrite your future. Tonight, I want to challenge you to stop living small, to stop selling your hours cheap, and to start thinking like a millionaire. Because the rules of wealth are the same for everyone, but only a few decide to play them. When I learned the true value of time, it changed everything for me. You see, money is a tool. You can spend it, you can earn it, you can lose it and regain it. But time, once it's gone forever. That realization can shake a man to his core. Most people live as if the hours are infinite, as if tomorrow is guaranteed. And so they trade their most precious currency for things that don't build them, that don't move them closer to their dreams. But the wealthy, the successful, they understand that time is capital. It is the seed, and if you plant it carefully, it multiplies into a harvest of wealth, wisdom, and legacy. I remember a time when I used to waste my evenings. I thought relaxation meant idleness, but all it brought me was regret. Then I realized, what if I invested those same hours into reading a book, learning a new skill, or building a small project? What if, instead of spending time, I invested it? The difference was staggering. Within a few years, the compound effect of small, deliberate investments of time began to create opportunities that once seemed out of reach. Think of your day as a bank account. Every morning, you are given 24 hours to spend. No more, no less. The question is, how are you investing it? The wealthy don't waste their mornings scrolling through distractions. They begin their day with intention. That first hour, if used wisely, can transform the other 23. If you fill it with growth, reading, planning, reflecting, you anchor your mind for productivity and discipline. But if you give it away to noise and chaos, your day will drift with no direction. One of the best exercises you can do is to audit your schedule. Write down where your hours go. You may be surprised to discover how much is lost to television, gossip, or idle chatter. Time thieves, that's what they are. And every minute stolen is a minute that could have been invested in learning a new skill, deepening a relationship, or working on your vision. Replace the idle with the intentional. Exchange 1 hour of television for 1 hour of reading, and in a year, you'll have consumed the equivalent of a college education. Exchange 30 minutes of idle talk for 30 minutes of building a side project. And in time, that project could replace your paycheck. You see, the poor think in terms of money, but the rich think in terms of time. Money follows time well spent. If you invest your hours in growth, in creating, in producing value for others, the money will eventually chase you down. But if you waste your hours, money will always slip through your fingers. The truth is, every fortune begins with how a man or woman spends their day. Time is the great equalizer. We all have the same 24 hours. The difference is in how we choose to use it. Treat time as your most valuable asset. Invest it wisely, and it will return to you multiplied beyond measure. Wealth is not something that starts in your wallet. It begins in your mind. That's the secret most people miss. They think if only they had more money, life would change. But the truth is, life changes when you change. If you change, everything changes for you. The bank account is only the reflection. The mindset is the foundation. You cannot sustain wealth with a poor mentality. That's why you'll often see people who win the lottery end up broke within a few years. They never built wealth in their mind first. They got rich quick, but their habits, their philosophy, and their vision stayed poor. And eventually, the outside caught up with the inside. I remember when I first started on my journey, my pockets were empty, but I discovered something far more powerful than money. I discovered that if I could learn, if I could think differently, if I could surround myself with the right ideas and people, then I could change everything. I started writing affirmations, not because I believed in magic, but because I knew I had to train my mind to focus on growth and possibility. Each morning, I wrote things like, I am building wealth. I am disciplined. I attract opportunities. I grow daily. Those words weren't describing who I was at the moment. They were shaping who I was becoming. Another step I took was reading. I didn't wait for opportunities to knock on my door. I went out and borrowed the wisdom of those who had already walked the path. Just 30 minutes a day of reading about finance, success, or personal growth began to rewire my thinking. I began to see patterns. I began to understand why the wealthy act differently, why they speak differently, why they plan decades ahead while others only plan for Friday night. That habit of daily learning compounded just like money does. A page a day became a book a month, and over time, it built a new philosophy inside of me. But perhaps one of the greatest influences was the people I surrounded myself with. You can't think like a millionaire while spending all your time with people who complain about the price of gas or the unfairness of life. You need voices that lift your standards. You need conversations that challenge you to grow. The poor mindset spreads quickly. It tells you to settle, to play small, to believe that wealth is for someone else. But the right environment pushes you higher, reminds you that wealth is not only possible but expected when you commit to growth. So, wealth begins in the mind. It starts with affirmations that anchor your focus, with books that feed your imagination, with people who sharpen your vision. When you change your thinking, you change your actions. When you change your actions, you change your results. And when you change your results, your bank account eventually reflects the wealth you already built within. Most people spend their lives consuming. They consume products, consume entertainment, consume news, consume food, consume other people's ideas, and rarely stop to ask themselves, what have I produced? Consumption is easy, it's everywhere, but creation, that's where wealth comes from. Every dollar you've ever earned was because someone produced something of value and exchanged it with you. If you want to move from scarcity to abundance, from being broke to being wealthy, the shift is not in wishing for more, it's in becoming more. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't hope life changes, change what you bring to life. When I was starting out, I realized quickly that consumers are at the mercy of producers. The movie theaters make money because people consume movies. The restaurants make money because people consume meals. The authors make money because readers consume their books. Now, there's nothing wrong with enjoying life's pleasures, but if all you ever do is consume, you'll always pay the bill. If you want freedom, you have to be on the producing side of the equation. You don't get wealthy by buying the course, you get wealthy by teaching one. You don't get wealthy by endlessly scrolling on social media. You get wealthy by building the product or service that others scroll to find. The question you should ask yourself regularly is simple but profound. Did I produce more than I consumed this week? That question alone can reshape your entire financial future. It forces you to think about your output, not just your intake. Maybe it's producing a service that solves a problem. Maybe it's producing a digital asset, a video, a book, a piece of software that can be sold 1,000 times without you being there. Maybe it's producing content that educates or inspires others, instead of just watching endless content that entertains you for a moment but leaves you empty. Production is contribution, and contribution always attracts compensation. I made it a personal discipline that before I consumed entertainment or social media, I had to create something first. Write a page, record an idea, build something of value. Even if it was small, it created the habit of contribution. That little shift compounded because the discipline of producing first not only built assets, but also built character. And wealth, remember, is less about money and more about the character you develop in the process of earning it. So, the great transformation happens when you stop seeing yourself as just a consumer in this world and start seeing yourself as a producer. The producers design the future, the consumers merely live in it. If you want wealth, freedom, and impact, start asking not what can I get, but what can I create? Because the more you produce, the more value you add, and the more value you add, the wealthier your life becomes. Not just in money, but in meaning. Most people don't realize that their money is silently voting every day. Every dollar you spend is casting a vote for your future or for your comfort. The wealthy understand this. They don't just look at money as a tool for today. They see it as a seed for tomorrow. The poor, however, often trade tomorrow's possibilities for today's pleasures. They buy things that make them feel good in the moment, but leave them empty and stressed later. That's the great mistake, trading the future for comfort. And the painful truth is that comfort today often becomes change tomorrow. Think about it this way. Every time you choose to put money toward an asset, you're building a bridge toward freedom. Every time you choose to put money toward a liability, you're building walls that trap you. The key is learning to think like the wealthy. Assets, not comfort. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. Stocks, real estate, businesses, digital products, intellectual property. Comfort spending is the opposite. It may feel good now, but it drains your resources. I learned this lesson early. I had friends who always had the newest car, the fanciest clothes, the biggest TV, but when I looked closer, they were drowning in debt. Their lifestyle owned them. Meanwhile, I decided to buy books, courses, and eventually small investments. My friends laughed at me back then, but years later, when my assets began paying for my lifestyle, the laughter stopped. One discipline that changed my life was tracking my assets versus my expenses every month. It's a simple habit, but powerful. When you start writing it down, you can't lie to yourself. You begin to see clearly if your money is building freedom or digging a hole. I also committed to saving and investing 20 to 30% of everything I earned. Even when it was only a little, the consistency built momentum. Some people say they'll start saving when they make more money, but that's not true. If you can't save when you make a little, you won't save when you make a lot. Discipline doesn't come from income, it comes from decision. And here's another truth. Delay lifestyle upgrades until your assets can pay for them. Don't buy the luxury until the dividend from your investments covers it. Don't take on the big car payment until the rental property pays it. That way, your comforts don't steal from your future, they flow from it. This single principle separates those who struggle from those who prosper. So the challenge is simple. Every time you touch money, ask yourself, is this buying me comfort or is this buying me freedom? Because when you start consistently choosing assets over comfort, you may sacrifice a little pleasure now, but you'll secure a life of abundance later. Most people try to rely on willpower to change their financial life. But here's the truth. Willpower is unreliable. It's like trying to hold your breath underwater. You can only do it for so long before you come up gasping. That's why so many people start strong with saving or investing and then fall back into old habits. The problem isn't their intention, it's their system, or rather, the lack of one. Discipline becomes so much easier when you stop trying to fight temptation every day and instead build a system that does the heavy lifting for you. When I was younger, I realized I had the same struggle as everyone else. I'd say, this month I'm really going to save. But by the end of the month, the money was gone. Not because I didn't want to save, but because life kept finding ways to spend it. That's when it clicked. If I wanted a different result, I had to stop depending on my willpower and start designing a structure that made saving automatic. Systems don't get tired, they don't get emotional, and they don't forget. That's why the wealthy build habits into systems. They know emotions will always sabotage discipline. The first thing I did was set up an automatic transfer the moment I got paid. Not at the end of the month, not after expenses, but right at the top. That way, saving and investing became a priority, not an afterthought. If you only save what's left over, there will never be anything left over. But when the money leaves your account automatically before you even see it, it becomes untouchable. It's like paying yourself rent. Just as you'd never think of skipping your landlord or your mortgage, you have to treat your investments as non-negotiable bills. Another tool I've recommended is using apps that round up your daily spending and invest the spare change. Think about it. You buy a coffee for $2.70, the app rounds it up to $3 and invests 30 cents. Over time, that trickle becomes a stream. The beauty of systems like this is that you don't even notice the discipline. It's happening behind the scenes while you live your life. And yet, in a few years, you look back and realize you've built a small fortune almost without effort. The principle is simple. Don't fight yourself, outsmart yourself. If you try to save with sheer willpower, every new gadget, every sale, every impulse will pull you away. But if you lock the decision into a system, the work is already done. Imagine how your life would change if your savings grew every week without you even thinking about it. Imagine investments building while you're at work, while you're asleep, while you're living your life. That's the power of systems. So don't depend on your moods. Don't depend on your memory. Don't depend on tomorrow's discipline. Build the system once and let it serve you for a lifetime. Because the truth is, wealth isn't built on giant acts of discipline. It's built on smart systems that never fail. Most people measure wealth by what they can buy: cars, homes, vacations, luxuries. But let me tell you something important. Those things fade, they rust, they break, they get replaced by the next shiny thing. True wealth is not in what you accumulate for yourself, but in what you create that lasts beyond you. The major value in life is not what you get, but what you become, and even more, what you help others become. The pursuit of lifestyle is temporary, but the pursuit of legacy is eternal. I remember when I started to earn a little more than I needed. The temptation was strong. I wanted the new car. I wanted the fine suits. I wanted the comforts. And I enjoyed some of that, but I quickly realized those purchases gave me a moment of pleasure but left no lasting impact. What mattered more was the person I was becoming in the process and the influence I could leave behind. A lifestyle can impress people for a moment, but a legacy can inspire them for generations. Think about it this way. When you're gone, no one is going to care about the shoes you wore or the watch you owned. But they will remember the lessons you taught them, the opportunities you created, and the values you passed on. That's why wealth must be measured not just in indulgence, but in impact. I've met many rich people who live lavishly but leave nothing behind. Their wealth dies with them. And I've met others, perhaps with less, who chose to pour their resources into people, into causes, into ideas that outlived them. And those people are remembered as true giants of wealth. One of the greatest ways to build legacy is to teach financial wisdom to those around you, your children, your community, even a friend. Knowledge, once shared, multiplies. If you've learned a lesson about money, about discipline, about investing, don't hoard it. Share it. Help someone avoid the mistakes you made. You don't just grow your own wealth when you do that. You grow the wealth of a generation. Another way is to put aside a portion, maybe 5 or 10%, for causes that matter to you. Think about the power of that. Every dollar you invest in a cause you believe in plants a seed that keeps growing. You may not live to see the full harvest, but others will. Maybe it's education, maybe it's healthcare, maybe it's community development. When you allocate your wealth towards something larger than yourself, you transform money into meaning. And then there's the creation of projects, businesses, or trusts that can outlive you. Imagine building something that doesn't just serve you, but continues to serve people long after you're gone. That's what true wealth looks like. When your name becomes associated not with what you owned, but with what you gave, built, and passed on. So I urge you, don't chase lifestyle at the expense of legacy. Lifestyle is enjoyed in the moment, but legacy is remembered forever. Wealth is not just what sits in your bank account, but what continues to move in the lives of others because of you. When your life ends, your lifestyle ends with you, but your legacy that lives on. We live in a world that is addicted to speed. Everyone wants quick returns, instant gratification, overnight success. But let me tell you the truth. Real success does not come in days, it comes in decades. Just as the seasons are predictable, so is success. You cannot plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow. You nurture it, you protect it, you water it, and in time, you harvest. That's how wealth works. That's how life works. When I was younger, I had to learn this lesson the hard way. I was impatient. I wanted the results before I put in the years. But I realized that impatience robs you of discipline, and without discipline, there is no harvest. Think about the farmer. He doesn't get frustrated because the seed doesn't sprout in a week. He understands the seasons. He plants in the spring, works in the summer, reaps in the fall, and rests in the winter. If you miss the season, you miss the harvest. Wealth follows the same rhythm. The wealthy don't measure progress in days, they measure it in decades. They don't panic when the market dips. They don't sell everything when the wind changes. They understand that downturns are part of the cycle, just like winter is part of the year. If you panic sell in winter, you miss the abundance of spring. But if you stay steady, if you hold to your long-term vision, fortune favors your patience. That's why I tell people to create a 10-year wealth vision. Don't just ask, what do I want next month? Ask, what do I want a decade from now? What kind of lifestyle do you want your family to have? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? When you think in decades, your daily choices take on new meaning. Suddenly, skipping that unnecessary purchase today feels like a step toward that bigger future. Suddenly, investing consistently, even in small amounts, becomes powerful because time multiplies it. The market will go up and down. Business will have seasons of abundance and seasons of drought. But you must resist the urge to panic in the down times. When the economy takes a dip, most people get fearful, sell everything, and lose their chance for future growth. The wealthy, on the other hand, often buy during those very same downturns. Why? Because they know winter always turns into spring. They trust the cycle. And here's something practical. Instead of tracking your progress every day, review it once a year. Look at the big picture. Ask, Am I better than I was last year? Have I grown in assets, in knowledge, in discipline? If the answer is yes, then you are on track. The small fluctuations don't matter nearly as much as the overall direction. So don't let impatience steal your fortune. The years will pass anyway, and the question will be, did you stay consistent long enough to reap the rewards? Because success is predictable, just like the seasons, and those who measure progress in decades, not days, will be the ones who enjoy the true harvest of wealth. One of the smartest decisions you'll ever make on the journey to wealth is to stop guessing and start learning from those who've already walked the path. Success leaves clues. It's written in the stories, the habits, the decisions of those who've built great fortunes, built strong businesses, built lives of meaning. Yet most people insist on reinventing the wheel. They try to figure everything out by themselves, stumbling through mistakes that others have already made and documented. That's not wisdom, that's stubbornness. When I was young and struggling, I thought I could just figure it out. But figuring it out cost me years. It wasn't until I found mentors, people who had already achieved the kind of success I dreamed of, that my life began to shift. I studied their every move. I read their books. I listened to their talks. I sat with them whenever I had the chance. And what I discovered is that wealth, like health, follows principles. Just like you don't have to invent nutrition to eat right, you don't have to invent wealth principles to get rich. They already exist. All you have to do is study them and apply them. That's why I tell people to read biographies of millionaires. There is gold hidden in their stories. You'll see how they thought when they were broke, how they made decisions under pressure, how they handled failure, and how they built again from the ground up. Each story is a roadmap, a set of clues for you to follow. Every page gives you perspective you could not buy with money alone. And don't just stop at books. Surround yourself with people who are already where you want to be. Join mastermind groups, business circles, or communities where wealth is being created and discussed. The environment will lift you higher. If you spend your time with people who constantly complain about money, you'll think small. But if you spend time with those who are building wealth, you'll start to think bigger. Their vision will stretch you, their discipline will challenge you, and their results will inspire you. Now, some people say, but what if I don't know anyone wealthy? The truth is, you don't need personal access to start learning. Technology has given us the ability to learn from the best without ever leaving our home. You can listen to interviews, watch lectures, read memoirs. The key is to consume what inspires you to act, not what entertains you into laziness. And when you learn from others, here's a simple rule. Copy before you create. Don't try to build something brand new when you haven't mastered the basics. If a system works, adopt it. If a strategy has created wealth for others, practice it until you understand why it works. Once you've mastered the principles, then you can innovate. But too many people want to be different before they've even been disciplined. So, don't waste years wandering when you can follow proven tracks. Study those who've already done it. Gather the clues they left behind. Apply them with consistency. Because wealth doesn't just belong to those who are lucky. It belongs to those who are willing to learn, adapt, and follow the trail already blazed. Success leaves clues, but only for those willing to pick them up. One of the greatest lessons in building wealth is learning how to delay gratification. Discipline creates freedom, yet most people want the reward now. They want the car before they can afford it, the vacation on borrowed money, the lifestyle that their income cannot sustain. But here's the truth. Every time you choose short-term pleasure, you mortgage your future. You trade tomorrow's abundance for today's comfort. And while it feels good in the moment, it creates a cycle of limitation that keeps you bound. When I was younger, I too fell into the trap of wanting things right away. I thought, if I can buy it, why wait? But I quickly learned that just because you can doesn't mean you should. The wealthy operate differently. They understand that waiting multiplies rewards. Instead of buying the car, they invest in an asset. Instead of rushing to upgrade their lifestyle, they build streams of income. And then, years later, their assets pay for luxuries without shrinking their wealth. That's why I teach people to adopt simple rules, like waiting 6 months before making a major purchase. If you still want it after half a year, and if your assets can pay for it, then maybe it's the right time. But more often than not, you'll realize you didn't need it after all. You'll have trained yourself to separate desire from impulse. And that habit alone will save you fortunes over a lifetime. Another powerful practice is to bank bonuses instead of inflating lifestyle. Most people, when they receive a raise, a tax refund, or a bonus, immediately think of what to spend it on. New clothes, a better phone, maybe even a car upgrade. But the wealthy use that money to accelerate their wealth building. They save it, invest it, or use it to pay down liabilities. The difference between spending a bonus and investing a bonus might not show in 1 year, but it will transform your life in 10. The deeper principle is this: train yourself to enjoy simplicity. If you can learn to be happy in a modest apartment, you'll be even happier when you can afford a mansion. If you can enjoy a quiet meal at home, you'll truly savor a fine dinner when the time comes. But if you always need more, always crave the next upgrade, wealth will slip through your fingers no matter how much you make. Simplicity builds strength. Simplicity keeps you grounded. Simplicity allows you to grow without being enslaved by the need for constant comfort. So, ask yourself, am I trading long-term wealth for short-term pleasure? Every purchase, every decision, every impulse is a test of whether you're willing to build a future or just satisfy the moment. The key to wealth isn't denying yourself forever. It's delaying gratification until your assets can pay for your desires. That's when freedom begins. Because discipline creates freedom, and delayed gratification multiplies the rewards. You don't get paid for time, you get paid for value. That single idea can change the entire way you approach your work, your career, and your wealth-building journey. Most people are caught in the trap of trading hours for dollars. They think the secret's working harder, working longer, grinding more. But if that were true, the hardest working people in the world would be the richest. And we both know that's not the case. The difference lies in value. Wealth flows to the person who solves problems, the person who creates solutions, the person who makes life easier or better for others. When I first learned this principle, it shook me. Up until then, I thought income was tied to effort. But then I realized 2 people can spend the same 8 hours differently and produce completely different outcomes. One spends 8 hours doing tasks that could be replaced tomorrow, while the other spends 8 hours solving a problem that millions of people face. Who do you think gets paid more? Who do you think attracts wealth? It's the one who creates value. That's why I encourage people to start each day with a simple question. How can I make someone's life easier or better today? Write it down. Let it shape your thinking. Maybe you're in sales. How can you make the process simpler for your customer? Maybe you're in teaching. How can you explain a concept in a way that truly transforms a student's understanding? Maybe you're building a business. How can you design a product that not only sells but solves a problem in someone's life? That's the real key to wealth. But don't just stop at ideas. Document the solutions you come up with. Write them down, refine them, test them, improve them. Most people underestimate the power of keeping a record of their problem-solving journey. But wealth doesn't come from one flash of inspiration. It comes from building on ideas consistently, making them sharper, more practical, more effective over time. And when those solutions evolve into products or services that people truly need, money begins to chase you. You no longer have to beg for income. Opportunities come knocking. That's the shift from chasing money to attracting money. Think of the wealthiest individuals throughout history. They weren't just clocking hours. They were solving problems at scale. Whether it was Henry Ford making cars affordable, Steve Jobs making technology accessible, or the neighbor down the street who built a small business that solved the daily need in the community. Value created wealth. So, stop asking, how much will they pay me for my time? And start asking, how much value am I bringing? Increase your value, and money will follow like a shadow follows the body. It's a law of life. And if you commit to solving problems bigger than yourself, you won't just build wealth, you'll build significance. Because in the end, wealth is simply the reward for value delivered. The more value you build, the more wealth you attract. If you don't risk the unusual, you will have to settle for the ordinary. That's the truth that separates those who live lives of quiet desperation from those who step into abundance. Most people want guarantees before they take action. They want certainty before they plant the seed, before they make the investment, before they pursue the dream. But life doesn't give guarantees, it gives opportunities. And opportunities always carry risk. The question is not whether there will be risk, but whether you have the courage to face it. I've met so many people who tell me, what if I fail? And I ask them, what if you don't even try? Isn't that a greater failure? Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the path to success. Every person who has built fortune has also faced setbacks. The difference is they didn't let fear stop them. They took the risk, learned the lesson, adjusted their course, and tried again. Now, I don't mean recklessness. I'm not asking you to throw your money into the wind or chase every shiny object. I'm talking about calculated risks, risks you prepare for, risks where you study, strategize, and then step forward with courage. That's why I recommend creating a risk fund. Set aside money specifically for ventures, experiments, opportunities. That way, you're never gambling with your essentials, you're investing with intention. Once you have that fund, commit to at least one new opportunity every year. It could be a business venture, a new type of investment, a skill that could open doors. It doesn't have to be grand in scale, it just has to be bold. Because boldness stretches you. It forces you to grow. It teaches you things that comfort never will. Even if it doesn't succeed, it leaves you stronger, wiser, sharper for the next move. I remember the first time I took a real risk. I wasn't sure if it would work, but I knew staying the same wasn't an option. That decision set me on a path I never could have imagined. Every bold move I made after that built on the one before. Fortune doesn't come to the hesitant, it comes to the decisive. So, don't let fear write the story of your life. Step out, take the risk, learn the lesson, pivot when necessary. Boldness builds fortune, and it also builds you into the kind of person wealth is attracted to. Because wealth follows courage, and fortune favors those who dare. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. And isn't that true in almost every part of life? When you walk into the dark, every step feels dangerous. But when you turn on the light, the path is still the same, only now you can see it clearly. That's what knowledge does. It doesn't remove all the risk, but it gives you clarity. It gives you control. Ignorance multiplies risk, but understanding reduces it. Too many people are throwing money at things they don't understand. They hear about a hot stock, a trending cryptocurrency, a can't-miss real estate deal, and they dive in because everyone else seems to be diving in. Then when it collapses, they're left wondering what went wrong. What went wrong is simple. They didn't study, they didn't understand, they didn't prepare. Wealth is not built on gambling, it's built on wisdom. That's why the first step in investing is not to buy, it's to learn. Study the asset before you commit a single dollar. If it's real estate, learn the fundamentals: location, cash flow, maintenance, taxes. If it's stocks, understand the company, its profits, its debt, its potential. If it's a business venture, know the market, the customer, the competition. Don't just buy the dream, study the reality. Once you've studied, start small. There's no rule that says you must go all in from day one. Put in an amount you can afford to lose. Test the waters and see how it feels. Experience is the greatest teacher, and small beginnings give you the lessons without the heavy losses. Every dollar invested with understanding is a seed planted with care. Every dollar invested with ignorance is like throwing seeds into the wind. But don't stop once you've started. Keep learning while you scale. Wealthy people are constant students. They read, they attend seminars, they ask questions, they learn from mentors. The moment you think you know it all is the moment you start to lose. Growth in wealth follows growth in wisdom. The more you know, the more confident you become, and the more calculated your risks become. I remember when I first learned about investments, it was overwhelming. There were so many terms, so many strategies, so many voices, but I realized I didn't need to know everything at once. I just needed to start learning and keep learning. Little by little, knowledge stacked up. With each step, I became less fearful and more intentional. So, don't chase every opportunity blindly. Invest in what you understand. Study first, start small, and never stop learning as you grow. That's how you turn risk into reward, ignorance into wisdom, and uncertainty into confidence. Because money follows clarity, and clarity comes from understanding. Luxury fades, but legacy endures. That's one of life's greatest truths. You can buy the finest car, the largest house, the most expensive clothes, but over time, they wear out, they depreciate, they lose their shine. What remains is not what you purchased, but what you built, what you gave, and what you left behind. The true measure of wealth is not in the symbols of status, but in the substance of your contribution. The greatest value in life is not what you get, it's what you become, and ultimately, what you leave. When you focus only on luxury, you're feeding the present. When you focus on legacy, you're feeding the future. Luxury serves you, legacy serves others. Luxury fades with the seasons. Legacy multiplies across generations. So the question becomes, what are you building that will outlive you? For some, it might be a family business designed to last. For others, it might be wisdom, carefully documented and passed down. It could be investments structured in a way that provides security not just for your children, but for their children too. Wealth that dies with you was never wealth. It was simply spending. Wealth that outlives you is the kind that blesses generations. That's where creating trusts and funds for your family comes in. Instead of leaving them only possessions, you leave them the structure, the foundation, the security to build on. You create something that can support dreams, fund education, and keep the family vision alive long after you're gone. That's the power of thinking beyond luxury into legacy. But legacy is not only about money, it's also about values. Imagine supporting causes that align with what you believe in. Education, health, opportunity, faith, community. When you direct your wealth towards something bigger than yourself, you extend your influence far beyond your lifespan. A donation, a scholarship, a community project, these are the footprints of legacy. Someone years from now may be reading a book you helped publish, studying in a school you helped fund, or finding comfort in a program you helped sustain. And perhaps most importantly, document your lessons. Write them down, record them, share them in conversations with your children, your students, your friends. Money can disappear if mismanaged, but wisdom, once planted, continues to grow. A letter, a journal, a book of principles, these can carry your voice into the future, guiding generations who may never meet you but will feel your influence. When I reflect on my own journey, I ask myself, will people remember the car I drove, or will they remember the ideas I shared? Will they recall the house I lived in, or the wisdom I passed along? That's the ultimate measure. So, don't just chase luxury, build legacy. Create structures that last, support causes that matter, and pass down the lessons that shaped your life. Because long after the luxury fades, your legacy will continue to speak, and it will speak louder than any symbol of wealth ever could. We've traveled through ideas of wealth, time, discipline, and legacy, not as theories, but as choices you and I must make every single day. Remember, money is only a tool. What truly matters is who you become in the process and what you leave behind. Don't just dream about wealth, build it. Don't just live for comfort. Create a legacy. Starting today, invest your time wisely, focus on assets, and share your wisdom. The future isn't waiting. It's shaped by what you decide to do right now. So step forward with courage. Your legacy is calling.